So really happy to have everybody with us today. For those of you who may not recognize my voice, my name is Tania. I work on program development and volunteer management with CCAE. And amongst those programs are our CCAE learning series. They happen about once a month. We have 2 left in the next couple of weeks. One's going to be occurring in April, one's going to be occurring in May. And it is my pleasure to welcome our presenters for this month, Tania and Mark from the University of Toronto, who happen to be in Scarborough today while I'm at the University of Toronto. So we call it chance, we call it luck, we call it planning, whatever it may be, we are in the same city. So I'm more than happy to be here and share the problems with you guys. These are recorded. I do want to let folks know that your lines are muted and will be muted throughout the duration of the webinar. So you are encouraged to submit any questions via the chat box or the Q&A. The presenters will be fielding them at multiple times throughout the presentation, and I know there's going to be some time at the end. So again, I strongly encourage you at any time to make use of the chat box or the Q&A in order to interact with myself, Mark and Tania. So Mark and Tania, I know you're there and ready. They're all yours.
Okay. Thank you very much and welcome. And thanks for joining us today. We truly appreciate all of you taking the time to join us, given everyone's busy schedules. I hope everybody is comfortable and warm. There's nothing I can do about that if you're not, but it's customary to ask. So you cannot say I was not being polite, just not sincere. Now, it's important for us to ensure that you all gain something from this session and they're able to take away some practical applications for your organizations. We've all been in webinars before, and by the time it was done, we wish we hadn't signed up in the first place. So we're dedicated to making this hour helpful and hopefully fun, because that's how we run our shop. Personally, I feel blessed to be leading this exciting talent management work in Advancement U of T. There's so much excitement about where we're heading, and Tania and I often go on tangents talking about the possibilities. So to get started, we thought we'd give you a bit of a background on each of us and how we, like others, fell into advancement. So I'm Mark Seymour, and I'm the Director of Advancement Talent Management at U of T. I'm an HR professional that calls myself a generalist with specializations in total rewards, labor relations, and talent management. I have nearly 2 decades of experience in human resource management in the broader public sector. I started my career at an agency of the Ontario government as an HR assistant and left 6 years later as the HR manager. From there, I spent the next 8 years at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health in various roles and supported our foundation with their HR needs. Over 5 years ago, I joined the University of Toronto as the Director of HR for the Rotman School of Management. I took an interim assignment in our Central Organizational Development and Learning Center, and then joined Advancement Talent Management nearly a year and a half ago as the new director. I'm fortunate to not be involved in the day-to-day HR administration anymore, like writing job descriptions and handling grievances. The work I've always gravitated towards is related to strategy, consultation, and facilitation. So talent management is exactly where I need to be. And although I've only been on this team for 1.5 years, I'm going to keep on saying I'm new as I'm learning every day and building on Tania's successes on this team.
Thanks so much, Mark. And as an aside, I'll let you use the new card for a little bit longer because Mark has been using it since literally the day that he has started and has been using it every day since. But once you hit that 2-year mark in September, I'm not so sure I'm going to be able to let you use it anymore.
The countdown's on.
The countdown is on, yeah. I am Tania Pihl, and I'm the Associate Director of Advancement Talent Management at U of T. And my background is different and complementary to Mark's, which is one of the many reasons why we make such a great team. I got my start in advancement at Queen's University and during my undergrad. And thanks to the great support of the annual giving team there, I was exposed to what a great career working in advancement could really look like. Upon graduation, I started my career in advancement managing the call center. After a couple of years at Queen's, I moved to Wilfrid Laurier University, where I had the great fortune of holding a variety of leadership roles in annual giving, alumni relations, and stewardship. While I was managing teams there, I became increasingly interested on how to motivate individuals and teams to achieve great success, especially in our goal-oriented environments in advancement. So I decided to do a master's degree in leadership from the University of Guelph. After 7 years at Laurier, U of T posted a role which combined my passion for advancement and managing talent, and the rest is history. And I've been at U of T for 4 years now. So having worked at other advancement shops, I understand the varying sizes of advancement teams and resources, and how that can really augment the way in which you intake professional development sessions and the content delivered. For today's session, we thought we would provide some context as to the U of T landscape, the history of advancement talent management, provide a bit of an overview on the current talent management trends, and then focus our session on what our key talent management initiatives are and how you can scale your efforts to make a maximum impact. So to start, we thought we would review our organizational statistics. Now, before I started at U of T, when I would see a presentation from U of T, it boggled my mind how the structure worked. It seems like so many individuals doing very different jobs, I really couldn't understand how it fit together. Fast forward 4 years to my time here, and I'm not sure that I've mastered it yet, but what is clear to me is that we are a very large and complex organization. And for me, one of the most complicated components is how we are organized from an advancement perspective. I'll attempt to provide some context, but if you lose me, that's okay. We won't dwell on this slide too much. We have 27 divisions, which include faculties, single department divisions, and our federated colleges. The majority of these divisions have their own advancement team or lead, and the size of their team varies on the division size, their need, their budget, etc. Each of those advancement leaders for these divisions report to their principal and or their dean, and they also report to the central advancement team, which is called the Division of University Advancement. The role of Division of University Advancement is to provide support and resources to our divisional advancement teams and also provide service to the university and community. Collectively, between the divisions and our central staff, we are a team of over 350 advancement professionals across those 27 divisions and 3 campuses. The advancement talent management team here at U of T is part of the central advancement team in the Division of University Advancement. So our role is to serve and support the advancement community as it relates to talent management initiatives.
So we recognize that everyone on this webinar has a unique structure and resource differently. So we thought it would be helpful to give you some additional context on where advancement talent management at the University of Toronto falls and our broader supporting structure. So as we get into detail of how we operate, you might think to yourself, these U of T people sound really backwards. And I'm certainly not saying we sometimes do things weird. I pride myself on being different, but our approach is what makes sense for our current environment and reporting structures. So as we discussed on the previous slide, U of T is a large and complex institution. Our HR structure is equally complex. Each division has its own HR unit that is led by an HR director or manager, and they report either into the dean or chief administrative officer. The activities in each HR unit are pretty standard, with efforts focused on recruitment and selection, job descriptions and evaluations, and labor relations activities. A very important work, but highly tactical. So advancement is the first talent management unit in the university, which is also located outside of human resources. Over the last few months, a new central talent management shop was implemented, and we've been working very closely with them as we proceed. We're in a unique position of being the first out of the gate and able to help shape talent management at the university with what we discover. So this brings us some challenges. We are outside of HR, so we don't have direct access to HR systems and data. That says we have excellent working relationships with the players and can get it upon request. However, not being part of human resources also provides us with the opportunity to be a little bit more nimble and take a bespoke approach to talent management for the advancement community. And this makes sense. Advancement culture already uses goals and measurements, cornerstones in assessing the performance of our talent. And I believe it's the lack of performance data for many roles in higher education that's a contributing factor to the barriers to implementing talent management programming.
So where did we begin? As Mark kind of mentioned, this is new, and none of the other teams within our advancement or our university community had advancement talent management. So where did we all begin? Well, the primary driver of our portfolio was our Vice President, David Palmer. David is a well-known and very well-respected advancement leader who is incredibly committed to personal and professional development. And as such, he does a lot of work benchmarking with other institutions, which provides opportunities for growth and improvement. David and other senior leaders identified a gap with regard to our talent management efforts, in that while individual leaders were thinking about their individual team's talent management needs, there wasn't a coordinated, centrally managed team who was thinking about talent throughout advancement. Advancement talent management teams are best practice for many of our US counterparts. And we know that while many teams are thinking about all of these talent management issues, in particular in Canada, UBC, McGill, McMaster's, and others have centrally managed teams like ours to tackle talent management related issues and initiatives. So when we started our team, we were tasked with the following. One was to create a comprehensive in-house professional development program. Two was to develop supports for central onboarding and orientation to overlay on top of orientation managed by hiring managers. We were tasked with initiating ideas to increase and strengthen employee engagement. We were tasked with acting as a conduit between the advancement unit and the central human resources and equity group, specifically on the topic of performance management for non-unionized employees. And then we also were tasked with supporting the advancement community with executive searches. In the past few years, our programming has continued to develop and to support that growth, our team complement has also grown. We are now a coordinator, myself as associate director, Mark as our director, and we report into an executive director. She is on educational leave this year, and in the interim, we are reporting to the AP of Divisional Relations.
So moving forward, we've now closed the biggest campaign in Canadian history, and we're now embarking on our new campaign. So we're raising our sights for even bigger success. And as we do that, talent management has been explicitly stated as one of our key strategies moving forward. This has signaled to the entire advancement community that talent management is as important as the other elements of our campaign, and that we need to be at the table. So just before we get into talent management overview in the different areas, are there questions at this time?
So as a reminder to folks, please make use of the Q&A or the chat box. Tania and Mark, there are no questions at this time.
Okay, excellent. And we're happy to take questions and be very conversational at the end. Okay, so before we dive into the initiatives that we're currently undertaking at U of T, we thought we'd do a little bit of level setting on what we mean when we say talent management. So for those of you though don't have a formal talent management team, this work is happening at a variety of different levels. It just might not be labeled as such. The terms I use here may vary from institution to institution. So when you think of talent management, it's important to think about the entire employee life cycle. As advancement professionals, we all know about the donor life cycle and pipelining, and the exact same goes for talent. So to start, talent acquisition, looking at our employer brand, how we attract, recruit, and select for our talent for available roles, and building strong pipelines to get the best hire. Once they're in, we look at onboarding and engagement. First impressions really matter. How do we get a new hire up to speed and understanding our culture? We need to make sure everyone is engaged. Development. We need ongoing professional development opportunities so our staff have the skills needed to succeed, become functional experts, and develop their leadership potential. Performance management is about setting clear targets and holding people accountable for their results, recognizing superior results and supporting those who need help getting there. On a more strategic level, looking at succession planning, advancement is very dynamic and highly competitive space for talent. We need to prepare for the departure of talent in key positions that drive our strategy forward. Workforce planning, we need to look at data and trends to help us hone in our priority areas and what's coming in the years ahead. Forecasting future vacancies will help us continue the cycle as we look to attract strong candidates. So next, I want to talk to you a little bit of some of the drivers and what's moving talent management forward. So all over industry, you see that discussions on talent has become commonplace. Talent management is seen as a strategic enabler to the success of the organization. Therefore, it's no surprise that the same factors that impact the other lines of business are the same ones that drive talent management. So if talent management is going to be an effective partner, we need to know about the business. We need to be aligned to the overall strategy and be able to articulate how our program will affect the bottom line and improve advancement performance. That's also why I'm so happy to have Tania as a partner on my team, as she is an accomplished advancement professional, and I'm learning something from her every day.
Okay.
There is plenty of evidence that organizations with strong positive culture are more successful. So a major driver is to make sure your efforts and talent programs are aligned with your overall strategy. So the big question is to make sure that your culture supports this strategy and keeps your employees aligned and engaged in achieving this. So another driver is change. And I know it's cliche, but the only constant is change. Change is the new norm, and there are many disruptors to industry. And I'm sure we all have experience that higher ed is not known for being overly nimble and flexible. Universities themselves are medieval structures. I look outside my window and I literally see limestone buildings that have been there for over 100 years. U of T is turning 200 in 2027. So a major point is to make sure your planning is future oriented. Change here can sometimes feel like you're pushing a giant limestone block from those buildings up a hill with traditions, hierarchies, and precedents sitting on top of it. So my personal advice is don't get married to how things are done today. Look to the future and work to strengthen our capabilities to respond to change. Don't assume that things will stay the same. Many roles a few years down the road will look different than today. Some jobs in 2030 have not even been invented yet. Who would have thought that 11-year-olds can review toys on YouTube and make more money than a university graduate? It certainly makes me question my life choices. So look to the future. What are the trends telling you, and how can you better prepare? So another driver is the use of data and technology. We in advancement use metrics on a daily basis. It tells us the productivity of our team members and allows us to set stretch targets. In industry, we see terms like big data, predictive analytics becoming hot skills that are in demand. When we're looking for talent, how do we assess candidates' capabilities in these areas? If metrics and data are part of our culture, how does talent management compare? Are we using technology and information to the best of our ability? Are we making data-informed decisions, or are we making choices based on assumptions and flavor of the day? I'm sure we all get that email at the end of the day from one of our very important people where they've read a new article and they're all excited about it. We need to pause and make sure that it's actually supported by the data and that it makes sense for our institution. So this dovetails nicely into the last driver. Talent management is now being invited to the table. In the private sector, boards are very invested in talent management, particularly succession plans for executive roles. And we all know the productivity losses experienced when a difficult to fill leadership position becomes vacant. So our stakeholders expect talent management to put plans in place to mitigate these losses. So being invited to the table is a double-edged sword. Now that we have a place, we need to step up and show our worth. This means knowing the business, offering solutions, and building the skills necessary to succeed. So here I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some questions and principles. So there's no one-size-fits-all solution to talent management. We all come from different organizations with different complexities, priorities, challenges. Instead of giving you a magic bullet, we thought it'd be helpful to go over some guiding questions. You can figure out what your next step should be. So welcome to Deep Thoughts by U of T Advancement Talent Management. So consider you're asking yourself these questions. How is your talent programming aligned with advancement strategy? If it doesn't, why would your decision makers want to approve it? How would your talent programming contribute to your desired culture? What behaviors are you looking to change so that eventually it becomes so ingrained in your culture that these behaviors are part of a self-reinforcing virtuous circle? How can you use data to target where you need to focus and make better decisions? It's time for us talent professionals to step up. In talent management, We're always looking at the performance of our organization, which can be fun, but it's harder to use the same lens when we're looking at our own performance. So we need to grow and be better. The business uses metrics on a daily basis. How can we better ourselves? How can we add metrics to get our decision makers on board with our plans to ultimately help them be successful? So how will we measure success? The metrics will prove the return on investment. If a new onboarding program gets a new major gift fundraiser up in front of donors months earlier, what does that mean from a productivity perspective? And then lastly, does the effort to develop and maintain a new program outweigh the benefits? We all have very limited resources. Tania and I are fortunate to be in dedicated talent management with our coordinator, but keep in mind we're an extremely large, complex institution. Perhaps we have a program we really like, but it's very onerous and difficult to administer. Does this program yield fantastic results? If not, how can we simplify it so we can focus our efforts in areas of greater concern?
So when we were designing this session, we struggled with how best to put into context what we do at U of T and what you may explore doing, given the varied nature of all of our teams. So we decided on this format, where in this chart, we'll go through each stage of the talent management cycle that Mark just walked you through. And then each chart will provide some context as to where we were, where we are, where we want to go, and also provide you some suggestions and advice on elements you may want to explore, thinking about those questions that Mark just asked, that would provide you a little bit more information as you navigate your programming for each one of these various stages. I will say though, if you don't like this format, apologies, but you're going to be seeing it for the next 6 slides, so buckle in. For the first stage, talent acquisition, in the past, our central advancement team was not consistently involved in hiring, with the exception of the advancement leads for the division when they were being hired, which meant we often were unaware of new hires, no strategies for establishing external pipelines, and the university kind of followed the post and pray technique. There was also a great centrally managed advancement internship program specifically for staff in the central advancement team, which I mentioned, Division of University Advancement. However, it was highly administrative, and given our unionized environment, it was really challenging to ensure that we retained these interns in the long run. Currently, our team is responsible for informational interviews, profiling advancement job opportunities on LinkedIn, and are generally far more aware of the opportunities within our community. This allows us to play a strategic role in funneling potential talent to hiring managers and allowing us to be a conduit to share information across the advancement team. That said, there's always work to be done, and we're not always brought into the fold. For the past 3 years, we've been participating in the CASE fundraising residency and CASE advancement internship programs, which allow us to offer a full year residency and 2 summer internships to either students or recent grads interested in starting a career in advancement. It's a great pipeline tool so far, and we've had about 25% of our interns work at U of T after graduation. However, we still have the same challenge in our unionized environment with obstacles for these interns to be able to seek employment at the institution after. So where we'd like to go is to create more resources so we can have consistency in our hiring practices across advancement that are rooted in agreed upon values and competencies to ensure that we are all on the same page. We would also like to participate in more proactive and passive candidate recruitment to better serve our hiring managers and ensure that we have robust plans in place to replace key advancement roles that are challenging to hire, ensuring that we are keeping equity-seeking groups in mind. In terms of how you can increase your efforts on talent acquisition, is first getting on the same page by developing either values or competencies that are agreed upon by your whole advancement organization. By doing so, you create a foundation for your programming and decision making, and everyone is speaking the same language about what the values and needs of the advancement team are. And that allows you to hire the best people all on the same page with the same expectations. Another useful exercise is to identify where there are existing gaps. For example, by talking to a number of our senior leaders, we identified that hiring our divisional advancement leaders is a really time-consuming and challenging endeavor. Therefore, our team in advancement talent management needs to be more responsive in thinking about how to ensure we have future-ready candidate pool and resources available to fill these roles as they become vacant, to ensure that we can shorten the time it takes to hire these individuals. By determining where the gaps are, you can empower hiring managers to focus energy on the most pressing acquisition needs. The next stage includes both onboarding and orientation, as well as employee engagement. We previously had very little involvement in onboarding and orientation of staff outside of the Division of University Advancement, and it was primarily the responsibility of the division and the hiring manager. We also did not have any advancement-themed recognition programs, and we leveraged ones that were run centrally or through the university, or maybe even divisionally. Now we manage a coordinated onboarding program for all advancement staff. We've created an online portal that houses all advancement resources such as guidelines, policies, templates, organizational charts, onboarding material, and professional development tools. Our team sends a welcome email to all new advancement staff with links to this portal. We suggest orientation meeting schedules and set up new hires with an advancement buddy outside of their unit to help orient them to the culture of advancement at U of T. We also created the Advancement Bravo Awards, which is an informal peer-to-peer recognition program for advancement staff. And we also created a formal recognition program called the Advancement Leadership Awards, where we give out awards in 2 categories, Distinguished Leader and Rising Leader. Both of these recognition programs have been very successful since implementation a few years ago and are managed by our team, as it was important for us to offer specific advancement recognition programming. Through our programming, we feel staff are really appreciative of the visible investment in advancement talent, which has been much appreciated. Where we'd like to go in the future is to continue to make progress on our onboarding and orientation. We are a large and complex decentralized environment, as we shared before, and we know that we can improve in coordinating our efforts even through our central office to make the experience for new hires and hiring managers even better. We also want to leverage the central HR team's new SAP program and align our programming with the advanced online presence they are creating. And we also plan on increasing training to really continue to develop a culture of recognition with our team. In terms of what you might want to do on your teams, often when it comes to onboarding and orientation, we focus so much on what people need to do for their jobs. But as important is helping new hires understand the culture and the expectation. If you focus on these pieces, it's easier to determine where the gaps are. If staff are all on the same page about expectations, they can better support each other in the day-to-day learning that's imperative to their success. Another key component is leveraging your existing resources. Once we started to learn what different units do, we realized that the plethora of resources already existed, and therefore we really didn't need to recreate the wheel. In fact, our online portal is a collation of a variety of different resources from all of our central teams, and we really don't have to create a lot of content there. We just needed to find a way to organize it. But setting up these resources and creating consistency means that all new hires are being set up for long-term success in the same way. And that brings us to our next stage, which is professional development. Generally speaking, I think we can all agree that professional development is taken quite seriously in our sector, as it should be, being higher education. In fact, it's an area we really should be focused on, given the mission of our organizations and their impact on society. It was wonderful to see when I first started at U of T how much PD activity was being offered for both academic leaders and frontline fundraisers. There was a great focus on the elements that were necessary to do the job well and practical tools on things such as making the ask and leveraging volunteers. And like many advancement teams, some managers excelled at developing their staff and others were lagging behind without the skill, resources, or time to make this a consistent practice. When I first started, I was tasked with creating a robust professional development program for all advancement staff under the name of Advancement College. We have many staff members presenting At the time, we had many staff members presenting at professional development conferences, winning awards, but we didn't make use of sharing those presentations internally. So in working with our wonderful advancement communications and marketing team, we created a brand for the Advancement College, and the tagline is, work with the best, learn from the best. In 2016, we began offering sessions for all advancement staff and academic leaders. The topics were broad at first, covering all areas, and were informational and level setting. Since then, we've created a stream for advancement leaders where we focus on tools they need to be successful as advancement leaders, such as emotional intelligence, coaching, managing in a unionized environment, having difficult conversations, etc. And we also conduct needs-based training for niche groups like frontline fundraisers. Moving forward, we will continue to build on our successful programming and develop further segmentation based on our most pressing needs. We will also be focusing on aligning our programming to our values and competencies so that we can ensure that staff are getting the PD that will be the most impactful to our results. Lastly, we're working to ensure that all staff are engaged in creating targeted development plans with their managers, and the results of these conversations will really help to guide our work in advancement talent management moving forward in terms of helping us understand staff needs. In terms of advice we can give to teams who are looking to increase their professional development, one thing that was really helpful for us was to think about the kinds of behaviors we were trying to encourage and focus our programming in that way. For example, if we wanted to encourage cross-divisional partnerships to increase larger, multifaceted donations, we needed to hold sessions on collaboration and highlighting successful partnerships that others could model. The other tip is to start small and highlight the broad range of talent you already have. Featuring high-performing staff members who typically don't have an opportunity to share their success is a great way to get started. You may not have the resources to create an advancement college specifically, but you can share learning at a large team meeting or hold one PD session a year. And lastly, transparency in an organization is so important. Sharing information that's typically limited to senior leaders can really go a long way to help staff feel connected to the mission of the team. For example, if you participate in benchmarking, have someone from the team present the data to staff so they understand where the organization is and how it sits next to its peers, and then focus on areas that could use improvement and perhaps hold a brainstorming session to think about how each team can respond to these areas. This could be a great half-day session that gets staff involved and feeling invested in.
So this brings us to performance management, and sometimes that's a dreaded term, or sometimes we use it as a verb, calling, say we need to performance manage that individual. And that's not what we're talking about. It's more on the performance assessment and recognition of those great successes. Now, in the past, we had inconsistent performance management practices. Some units did more than others, and we all had paper-based forms for non-unionized advancement staff. Since our team started, we've now moved to online goal setting and annual performance tools in SAP system managed through our central HR group for non-unionized advancement staff. Through our outreach to advancement leaders, we've begun to tackle the important step of demystifying performance management in the unionized environment. There's previously so many myths about what managers' rights were and what was allowed under the collective agreement. We had the labor relations team in central HR provide an overview of what's possible, and it's uncovered the fact that performance-related conversations should not be taboo and that are actually encouraged from there. We provided more resources to leaders on what best practices look like and are leading on some of our high-functioning groups who practice solid performance management for ideas on how to create some consistent practices across advancement. Moving forward, we'd like to better align goals with our values and competencies and create processes for consistent and targeted development, performance and development plans. Now, this won't be an easy process, but completely necessary. We've heard from our frontline staff that they crave feedback and want more development. We are confident we can come up with a win-win solution. So in terms of advice for this area, it's important to understand what are the barriers for your unit. Are there consistent practices? If not, why is that the case? Are there myths that exist or lack of training or resources for managers? Also, focusing on the behaviors you really want to see is important with performance management, because what gets measured and incentivized gets done. For example, we want to encourage more collaboration between fundraisers and divisions to inspire larger, more transformational gifts. So the prospect management team has rolled out a co-solicitor metric to acknowledge when collaborative asks are happening. We are ensuring this will also become a performance metric for fundraisers as a way to ensure this behavior is reinforced. That said, it's important to maintain focus and not have too many goals and objectives, as it creates too much noise and distraction, making what's really important compete for space. Another important consideration, and somewhere we want to help improve with, is simplifying our processes. The form and the process is one element, and thinking about how to culture good performance is key. So, trends in the industry are moving towards ongoing conversations, making performance and development planning part of the dreaded process. The next two slides are very new to UT advancement, so we're very excited where we're headed over the next couple of years. So both our past and present are pretty much the same at the moment. So for succession planning, we have been reactionary, more about replacement planning as retirements are planned or a position becomes vacant. We're usually able to find someone to act in a vacant role in a step-up capacity, or look to others in our network for an interim leadership assignment. However, there was no overall effort at the executive table to strengthen these internal pipelines and determine which of our leaders are ready now to move up, or which ones need a plan in place to help them get there. We also really focus these efforts on leadership positions and not in any other roles that are key to driving our agenda forward. So one of our challenges in the past is that the division advancement leaders only indirectly reported to central advancement, limiting our insight into the operations of each division to an extent. We have moved to a joint reporting model and partner with the principals and deeds to manage these advancement leaders and provide support and best practices to those functions. But today is a brand new day, the sun is shining, and our advancement talent management team is embarking on our first ever talent consultation and meeting with all of our leaders in advancement, both centrally and each division across the university. Through this consultation, we'll get a look at the following. So we'll get a snapshot of our current talent and what they need to be successful. We'll have an understanding of our advancement talent ecosystem, how people move and develop their careers, and who's ready for another step. We'll have identified key advancement roles, which are identified positions that drive our agenda forward. And when vacant, it has a major effect on the functioning of the unit. These positions may be hard to fill, meaning we need to develop strong succession planning for these roles. It isn't sustainable to have a succession plan for every position. So let's focus on those key roles. We can build strong external pipelines for feeder positions like advancement coordinators and assistants. So the internships that we mentioned earlier are an excellent example of this. It's also important to look at trends, new roles that haven't even been invented yet. So what are the skills that you think will be needed for the future? How can we start building our capabilities now so we're ready for when new roles come up? Example, we see more collaborative gift opportunities now between divisions and external partners like hospitals. So how can we build up our bench strength in this area now in the event we have new roles that are completely specialized that focus on collaboration? So the key to these efforts is to put targeted development plans in place and support from senior leaders on the development of the staff so we can be ready for when these roles become available. So it's important to measure the uptake. When key roles do become available, how many of our ready now candidates are chosen for these roles versus an external candidate? What does this mean? Were they not actually ready now? Or do we miss a key competency in their development planning? If so, let's adjust our efforts and build those skills. The last area in the talent management cycle is workforce planning. And we've been mostly manual so far in our tracking of our activities as we don't have direct access to systems or data. That said, we have good relationships with HR and get it on request, but also given our decentralized nature of advancement at the university, even getting this information from the source is a challenge since it requires manual checking to make sure all advancement staff are included across the institution. HR currently has disparate systems for each activity: payroll, recruitment, recognition, and performance management. But again, luckily, things are looking up. Central HR and Equity is embarking on a digital transformation and implementing SAP SuccessFactors for all the stages on the employee lifecycle. Therefore, our HRIS, recruitment, performance, and succession planning models will all be integrated, making the data extrapolation much faster and easier. We're currently advocating for better real-time data to establish baselines, set priorities, priority areas, and focus targets. So, looking at projected retirement dates, rates, and projected turnover for key positions, we can determine if we have the internal talent to fill those roles through our succession planning activities. If gaps exist, we can put together strategies to strengthen our external pipelines or develop more internal staff. So moving forward, what do we all need to do? So back to some of the trends we talked about earlier, it's important to get data for your initiatives and establish baselines. Where are you sitting right now? If you've decided to implement a program, which metric will help you measure success? How did you know it actually worked? And are there any metrics that you can use in your business case to call your decision makers to action and approve your plan?
So we recognize that we've presented you with a lot of information, and Mark mentioned at the beginning that we really like to talk about this stuff. So I hope it wasn't like drinking from a fire hose and not too overwhelming. But we also recognize that each of you are coming from a very different place within your organization and bring a different lens. There may not be a logical place for some of these initiatives to be housed within your team if you don't have a dedicated advancement talent management team. So what can you do and where can you start? The advice that we have received and the advice we like to give is to start small and pick one thing that can make an impact and build from there. As leaders within our organization, and we mean leadership at all levels, we know what some of the existing challenges are and the behaviors and the cultures we'd really like to strengthen. So start by validating your thoughts with a small group of trusted colleagues that represent a diverse group of your stakeholders and brainstorm as to what elements could make a big impact. Perhaps there's a need for additional transparency within your organization, and staff want to feel more connected to senior leaders. Developing one professional development session that overviews the vision for the team and allows team members to participate in brainstorming and how their units can support the vision could go a long way to making staff feel more engaged and connected to the mission. Perhaps there's a need for more recognition within the team, and creating a fun, informal recognition program could really increase staff engagement. Leveraging existing tools is a great way to maximize impact. For example, maybe your institution's HR team has a specific group dedicated to recognition who can help you to develop a program or provide you resources. Or maybe you do a bit of an appeal for an existing recognition program that the university also manages, and you can drive advancement team members there. A good question to ask yourself before implementing any new program is to determine how you'll measure success and how you know you've made an impact so you can build on what's working. Another important question to ask is who will champion this kind of activity? For us, it is clear that we would not have had the success we have had and continue to have without the support of our senior leaders. We present to them on a regular basis and keep them involved in our programming so they can champion our activity. On your team, think about a senior leader you'd want to get buy-in from and support after you've brainstormed some ideas, bring them forward for consideration. The point here is that this activity does not have to be robust to start. By making incremental changes and inclusions, you can really build something special.
So this brings us to the end of Tania and I's sermon on the Mount. We're very passionate about this. So we'll now open it up to questions and comments from the group. So please use the chat box, and Tara will help facilitate this. So of course, we appreciate all your time. And if you'd like to connect with either of us following the session, our contact information is listed here. And as you can tell, we really do like to talk. So we would enjoy some additional conversation on any of the content that we've covered. I worked really hard to stay on script, but some of this stuff is so exciting. I love to look at all the possibilities and explore it from every single angle. So Tara, perhaps you can let us know if there are any questions at this time.
Certainly. So nothing that's officially come through the Q&A or the chat box. So I'll give folks a moment to organize their thoughts and pull their keyboards up again. But I do have a question for both of you. If folks are managing staff without a background in talent management, do you have a recommendation on resources perhaps that they themselves can seek out to help build that portion of their own abilities in terms of dealing with difficult conversations, or adopting some of those HR practices without a specific background?
Do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
Yeah, you can start.
Okay, so there's a couple of things, and where I usually like to start, and this is the HR professional in me, is just answer that question with another question, would be first, have you identified what your issues are? And then that will at least help you hone in on to what some of the possible solutions could be. Sometimes we get pretty excited about a new program or trend or something that another institution is doing. We'll say, oh, I want to do that. And let me get some resources so we can implement it here. But understanding the context of why these programs were implemented in another institution will really help you understand, is that actually going to help you move yourself ahead? I do find we've had a lot of success collaborating with other institutions, with other talent management groups, and we've been sharing a lot of information, answering questions. Through CASE, they have a talent management conference for advancement professionals, and I found that to be very helpful, in particular in the network. And in the larger schools in the States, there's just a lot of research there as well, and people are always willing to share.
Mm-hmm. I think another component as well, to build on what Mark is saying, is thinking about who you respect as a leader, and maybe sitting down for coffee with them and having an opportunity to share and connect. I think one of the greatest strengths we have in advancement is our ability to connect with individuals, and the collective is so powerful. So I would definitely say leaning on people that you really respect as a leader yourself could help you emulate some of those behaviors that they are already doing. And then the other things, Mark has really inspired me on the reading front, and not that I didn't read before, but he's always coming in with great books. Easy reads, things that are not really complicated, bestsellers, HBR articles as well, Harvard Business Review. There's so many great articles and pieces out there in terms of information. So really, depending on how much you want to dive deeply into the area that you've identified, you can find a ton of really fantastic resources that can help kind of support you as you're figuring out how you want to improve in some areas.
So I have a recommended reading for those that are curious and are like me, and their Amazon shopping cart is always full of different ideas. A book that I really liked reading is called Inclusive Talent Management, and it takes a look at the various stages of talent management, similar to what we went through in this presentation, but adds a diversity, equity, inclusion lens to it, and taking best practices from various places in industry. The author is actually, he worked on the London 2012 Games, which was sort of tagged as the games for everyone, and they really worked hard to make it as inclusive as possible for those with disabilities, from equity-seeking, equity-deserving groups, and there's a lot of successes there. So you can translate some of those things to say, how could that work in my environment, and ask yourself those questions. So that's a fab book that I always have within arm's reach in the office.
Perfect, thank you for that. Well, it looks like folks are digesting all this information you shared, so we'll give them another quick moment to get their questions in. I think they were all jotting down notes and trying to figure out how to nurture their stars and move everybody and be proactive instead of reactive. So while we wait for those last minute questions to come in, and before we close, any last minute or closing advice you'd like to leave folks with?
So you probably, even though we were going through this, in as a formal manner as possible, you can probably tell by the way we're speaking now, Tania and I are both very open to future discussion. And so I think just just, advancement professionals, we don't have an issue doing this, outside, but sometimes we kind of forget to do it in talent management. So network. So, talk with, we're happy to talk with you, but really anyone in our types of positions and our skill sets, we only get here from the ideas of other people, and you build upon it and see what works for your institution. So go out there, ask questions, experiment, and have fun. This is some of in my career, this is just some of the most fun I've ever had. This is really great, important work, and it's now being recognized as such. So just ask those questions, have some fun, see if it works, be iterative in your approach. All of that experiment. It is a really great time for talent management.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. And Tanya, any last minute items to add?
No, I echo everything that Mark said, and I think maybe I would add that one of the things that has been really helpful for us is level setting and really trying to, I think, get to a place where our programming helps everyone really be on the same page so that we have some consistency. And I think having been, and I don't think this is unique to advancement, but on any team, you have those really, really phenomenal, strong managers and others who have been put into a management role and maybe they lack some of those leadership skills, but they are really great at some other things. And so I think the programming that we're talking about allows everyone to get on that same page. And so there's so much value, not only to those individuals, but all the people that they manage and then everyone in the organization. So it can seem overwhelming, but there's a lot of really great things to do just to get people on the same page and speaking the same language.
Actually, I'll add one more thing, and it's Tania mentioned this at the very beginning of the presentation and at the end, and that was by design, which really, again, giving full recognition and kudos to our Vice President of University Advancement here at U of T, David Palmer. It would not have been without his championship and continuing inviting us to the table and to strategize that we're not able to do that. So having that executive sponsor and champion is absolutely incredible. And so we're very, very lucky to have that at U of T, but you're seeing it all over industry now. So getting that sponsor is very, very important because it's so hard to push something up. It needs to come from both ends. It really needs to come from the top as well about the importance of talent management.
Wonderful. So I do very much want to thank you both. Very much appreciated. Some great advice that you've shared. As a reminder to folks who are on the call, all of our webinars are recorded and available on demand at no cost to our CCA members. So if there's content you would like to hear again or content that you would like to share with any of your colleagues, if you think it might be beneficial to them, feel free to send a request to us and we will send it back to you or that individual directly. We definitely want to thank Mark and Tania for their time. Both of you, I know there's a lot going on and the time you take in preparation, not just the time that you take presenting. So it's very, very much appreciated. I would also like to thank everybody who took the time to be on the call with us today. The next e-learning session will be in April. If you have any questions about that, you can check out our website or contact us directly. And then upon closing of the webinar, what you will also receive by email is a link to an evaluation. So I think it's about 5 questions. Take some time to evaluate the technology as well as the presenters. And once that's done, we'll also get that back to the presenters. So if you have any questions anytime about anything, feel free to get in touch with Mark, Tania, or myself. Mark and Tania, thank you so very much. And I wish everybody a very wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks, Tara, for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.